Welcome to News You Can Use, presented by Supreme Lending. News You Can Use offers timely information related to the housing and housing finance industry that we believe will benefit you and your customers. This is News You Can Use.
I've got some news that you can use, that all of us can use. God's two great commandments. First, to love Him with all our heart, all our soul, and our mind, and all our spirit. The second great commandment, which absolutely we can all use, is to love our neighbors as we do ourselves. So even if you don't buy in, if we don't agree on the first great commandment, we can all agree on the second one, to love our neighbors. And we need to, because Abraham Lincoln, arguably the best president that this nation, this leader, was the best. He basically told us all that a nation divided against itself cannot stand. That's actually not him doing the talking. It's the Word of God being retold by Abraham Lincoln. But he reminded us of a fundamental truth, which is a divided household at home, a divided community, a divided nation, it cannot stand. Okay, here's some more news that you can use. Relationships, most important thing in life. Well, listen, if you have a relationship with God, He's for you. He's not for everything you do necessarily, but He's still for you. And so let's say you don't have a relationship with God. You can still take that fundamental truth, and you and I can be for everyone. Even if we're not for everything, we can still be for everyone, for all of our neighbors. Let me share some more news that you can use. Another truth, and that is that everybody can be great because anybody can serve. Martin Luther King, boy, did he give us an awful lot of wisdom, and this nugget is really powerful. We're all in the service business, and we can all be great in our business if we just simply focus on serving others before self, which is, by the way, some more news that you could use. That's the mission. When you interact with Supreme, start with Supreme. Our mission is to serve others before self. We always put the lives of everyone else in front of our own. And by the way, you don't get less by doing that. You actually learn the secret, which is that you get much more. That's news you can use. All right, we started the program back when COVID-19 created, well, a bit of an event here in 2020. And we did so because we wanted to communicate to all of you, our partners, ideas about what we thought, still think, the road to recovery would need to look like. And guess what? Fascinating as it is, we're going to shift starting next week because we're kind of recovered, particularly in housing, but the economy is on its way back to recovery. And so we're going to shift to news that you can use, but it's going to be more focused on the macroeconomic happenings that do effectively impact housing and housing finance. And we're going to give you the very best information, news possible, so that you have a way to better inform your buyers and your sellers so you can serve them even better, deliver the industry's best customer experience in mortgages and in real estate. Okay. Back to the road to recovery. We induced the economy into a coma. We put the economy in a coma. Why did we do that? Simple. We wanted to basically give the medical field a chance to get in front of the impact that COVID-19 was going to happen. And so we wanted therapeutics to get developed. We also wanted to give our hospitals time to get prepared, and we did that. It was called flattening the curve, and we certainly flattened the curve initially, and we'll get to that in a minute, on the advance of COVID, but we flattened something else. We flattened the economy. That's right. When we put the economy in a coma, we knew we were going to significantly impair the economic output of this nation. And guess what? We were right. 65 million to date initial unemployment claims have taken place. 65 million. There's 160 million people in America that work. So 65 million have filed claims. We had 3.5% unemployment to start the year, lowest in history. We went up to 14, the highest in history, with the exception of the Great Depression. And now we're back down to 7.9, the road to recovery. We've actually recovered an awful lot of what we lost, but not all of it. Interest rates, as a result of the prospects of growth being substantially impaired, went to historic lows. Good for our business and good for those that want to refinance, which we'll get to in a few minutes. The second quarter GDP, that's basically growth year over year of what's happening in the cash registers called America, right? 32% lower. That's never happened, ever happened in history, even during the Great Depression. So that was the worst quarter ever. Fortunately, we've not yet seen the third quarter. We think we've made it all back. The road to recovery. That's why we're going to be shifting conversation next week. Housing sales, they went down 30+% in April and May because we had the economy in a coma. People basically were told to stay home. Mostly everyone did. Not everyone, but mostly everyone did. We've now had a massive recovery in housing, so much so that by the time we get to year end, we might actually be, in fact, the forecast from Doug Duncan several weeks ago is that we'll be up for the year. Not as much as we expected, but almost. An amazing recovery has taken place in housing. And finally, the national debt. And we'll get back to this in a few minutes, but sometimes, it always matters, but sometimes it matters less. And this is one of those times because we self-induced a coma. We did a stimulus. We gave money out to a lot of Americans to continue to keep the economy moving the best way possible, like a propeller on the back of the boat. We took jobs out of the marketplace because we induced a coma. We had to replace it with something, and we did. We sent checks, borrowing money in the future to give people money so they could continue to buy things like rent, groceries, Netflix. All right, so that's what's taken place so far. We added $3 trillion worth of debt. Let's talk about the restart because it happened around May. And again, I'm for everybody, not for everything. Some people weren't for the restart. They thought it was irresponsible. Others, I'm one of them, thought that we needed to get back safely the best way possible. But there was an awful lot of prognostication from economists about the kind of recovery when we took the patient out of the coma that we would get. We have a lot of alphabets up here, and we have also some other radical signs and all kinds of Nike got in there. I don't know how they did that, but what it's increasingly looking like is not the V, which is it goes right down and comes right back up, because that's not happened for everyone. Even though housing has had a V recovery, it's not happened across the entire economy. It's increasingly becoming, at least in the short term, a K recovery, where we have the upper end of the economy recovering, and it's not intentional. No one's doing anything. Like, it's not like the government's saying, oh, we'll just take care of the wealthy. That's not what's going on. It's really a much more detailed idea than that, because the folks that have not experienced the recovery yet are in service jobs where we still are reducing the amount of people in bars and restaurants and otherwise, and that has kept many Americans from getting back to full employment. Some are back. Restaurants are half full, 75% full, but they're not all the way back. And that's why the K, the bottom, hasn't yet raised itself. We'll hope that we have a new letter coming up here soon that looks like a K, and then the bottom comes up. I don't even know what that is, but it'll be a new one coming up here soon. Let's talk about what we said would be required for the recovery to take place. The Fed, monetary policy would have to kick into gear and create blood flow for the patient that was put into a coma. We said that the fiscal policy, Washington, our politicians, oh my goodness, we were going to need them to do something. And we were going to need them to participate in the recovery and not argue with each other, not be against each other, but before all of our neighbors, right? And then finally, health policy. We would need to see us really attack the COVID issue in terms of short-term therapeutics, how we treat it, and then also long-term to get a vaccine to really put a damper on it in future months and years for us. The Fed did an outstanding job. They have done anything and everything to keep blood flow going. They used plays from the playbook that they had during the Great Recession. They added some plays to the playbook. They've done great work. We've told you that in the past. They helped the recovery take place. They are now calling on Congress, Washington, fiscal policymakers to do more. And they're saying that by doing more, there's very low risk. We're not going to see inflation because we still have demand that is lower than it normally should be. And so we've got to get stimulus, propeller on the back of the boat to help our neighbors, those that are still not yet, like us, experiencing a V recovery. We've got to help them. Fed officials, in fact, came out recently, last week, and said that they're worried that the lack of help recently by Washington, fiscal policy, a second stimulus, if you will, that's threatening the recovery. And we've got some data that kind of tells us that at worst case scenario or best case scenario, we're stalling right now the recovery. And we need that propeller, that additional stimulus to keep the stalling from taking place. We need it to actually continue to move forward because just like everything else, it's about momentum. We need to continue the momentum that we built over the last 4 or 5 months. We did, in fact, take Act 1, $3 trillion of stimulus. They've been arguing whether it should be a $3 trillion or a $1 trillion, and now we're kind of in the $2 trillion range, and they're still arguing, and we don't have a solution yet for stimulus. Come on. You don't need to be for everything, but you definitely need to love your neighbor, and that's what we need to see those folks in Washington do just for a minute. Put aside your differences and figure out that this is not about you. This is about all of us, all of your neighbors. So Trump was against it. Trump was for it. He was against it. He was for it. I don't know. We woke up again today. I haven't read anything about it yet. He's probably for it again today. But in either event, hopefully we won't wait till after the election. We'll get something done. Forget the politics of it. There are people out there today that are waiting for some additional dollars as we continue to not be fully recovered, particularly in the service sector. We'll get to that in just a second. Let's look at COVID itself. This is kind of a good news story at this point. It's not done. We're not past it. But we certainly have taken on the full brunt to start with. And we'll hope that some of the forecasters who have been wrong in the past about COVID are wrong again, because some people are forecasting it's going to be another wave. It's going to get worse. But let's take a look at what's really happened to date, okay? New cases really kind of as a way to start the conversation. We had the first run. That was New York, the Northeast. And then we flattened the curve there. And then we had another run. That's the Southeast and Texas. And then we flattened the curve there. And it's in fact continuing to be flat in those. And now we have the Midwest that's kicking in because it is a virus, by the way. It does move. And we're now seeing the data tell us that. Current hospitalizations, they went up, Northeast, went down, went back up, Southeast, went back down, and now we're starting to see them climb, but not as much as we did before because therapeutics, the treatments are getting better, earlier and better. And then finally, and really importantly, the age of those that are being confirmed COVID-19 today is going down. And we know based on the data that when younger people get COVID, it does not impact them nearly like older folks who have been the majority of deaths. In fact, 80% of all the deaths in America today on COVID have been 55 years or older. There's been very few people that have died that have been younger than that. And that's good news about COVID-19. Not a lot of good news about COVID-19 to report, but that is good news. And deaths, in fact, at this point are continuing to decline flat and down. And that is a good news story. And we'll hope to continue to be able to tell you a bit about that going forward. Okay, let's talk about what's going on currently in the economy, like vital signs for this patient that came out of a coma. And we always think about the same things because these are the macroeconomic conversation points in any economy. Unemployment or employment is a big propeller on the back of the economic boat. Retail sales are directly related to employment prospects. If employment's good and looking like it's getting better, people go out comfortably and spend. And when they do, guess what? We need more people to support the spending. That's called job growth, and it just continues to cycle. Momentum. Stock market is a reflection of what the prospects look like 6 months down the road, generally speaking, a year down the road for the economic outcome. And then finally, housing. 30% of the entire nation's economy is based on housing, not just the sales, but all the people that build the houses and all the people that service the houses and sell the furniture for houses, et cetera, including selling Pelotons, which we're selling a lot of those these days. All right, let's talk about the employment market. Arguably the number one propeller and way to think about the next wave of what's going to happen in any economic cycle including the COVID cycle that we've been in. The final jobs report came out just recently in October. We will not see another one before the election. We added 661,000 jobs. By the way, based on the number of Americans today, if we add 200 plus thousand jobs a month, that's a really good report. 661, much better, but it is slowing from what it had been in the summer in terms of the recovery, and we still are not at 3.5, an all-time low where we started the year in employment. We're at 7.9 still, so we've got a way to go to get a full recovery, but we've made a lot of progress and we had a lot of momentum until Washington fiscal policy stalled. Otherwise, I believe the momentum would have continued to kick into gear, and so they can still do something. Please do. All right, so these are unemployment claims. They get reported every Thursday in America, and those are the number of Americans that show up and say, I'm still unemployed, I would like a check. Those dollars, by the way, in the first stimulus were $600 more per check, and that was an awful lot of stimulus. We ran out. It expired. We need to get something, if not that, something that looks like that back in the hands of those, our neighbors that are most in need today. All right, let's talk about where we're going next. Unemployment claims, by the way, the continuing claims, those are those that showed back up again saying, hey, listen, I'm still unemployed. That number continues to trend down, which is a good news story, and it correlates directly with new job growth. So as we continue to grow new jobs, you'll continue to see that number shrink. And that's our neighbors right there, by the way. Those are our neighbors that are still without full employment. And look, when we started the year, there were 2.5 million of us, okay, that were in that place. And now we have 11 million. So there's an awful lot of millions out there of people that have still not found their way back into the employment market. Come on, Washington, do something about it, will you? Please help. Short term, build a bridge, get a propeller on the boat so we can get more demand back in the economy, and then the real jobs will come back. We also need COVID's help. Let's not get distracted, okay? U.S. unemployment rate. This again gets back to the K recovery. If you make more than $60,000 in America, we had a dip, and then employment went right back up, right? That demand exists. Why? Because most of those jobs are not individuals that are interacting like service jobs where they could exchange COVID, getting close quarters with each other, which is what happens at bars and restaurants and on cruise ships. Once upon a time, there was a ship and a lot of people would get on it and they would take a cruise. It's also true that stadiums, of course, 20,000 people instead of 100,000 people this weekend. So those types of jobs are on the bottom wage earners, and they're not less than us as Americans. They're our neighbors. We've got to love them. They just do something different, but everybody can be great because everybody can serve, right? So you don't have to make a lot of money to be great. You just have to serve somebody, and you do that, and you're great. All right, so a bit to report today, too, that tells us a story about the momentum that's, in fact, in place and why we're not going to talk about the road to recovery any longer. But we're going to talk just about the general economy and housing finance specifically, is that the bailouts that were first in place, we're now below forbearance where people had to put their loans in forbearance because they didn't think they could pay. We're now down below 3 million for the first time. So that was a part of the CARES Act to offer forbearance. Those numbers were much higher at their peak. We're now down to a low for the last 5 months since COVID took place. So again, employment getting better, unemployment claims getting better, continuing claims getting better, and now we're seeing it in forbearance. So things are moving in the right direction. We just need more stimulus in the short run to continue the momentum that we created in the last 5 months on the road to recovery. U.S. consumer spending, again, absent the propeller called stimulus, is softening. We've now got down to where we're barely growing retail sales. And by the way, retail sales is an indication of how we'll be able to hire going forward, because if we don't sell more, we don't need more people to be in positions to take money from all of us, right? So again, this is all kind of correlating back to a simple fundamental premise. Employment's the big propeller, and right now, because we have a significantly different employment number than we did start of the year, we need another propeller, stimulus, and if we get that and COVID continues to decline, then we'll likely see a full recovery without any more stimulus, but we need some more stimulus. By the way, Domino's grew 15% On the one hand, good for Domino's. That's great. I didn't eat a Domino's pizza anytime recently. But what we know is true is if you eat too much Domino's, that won't be good for you. 15% growth. So let's see if we can't get their growth come down just a little bit, huh? Get broccoli growth up. How about that? A little bit more broccoli. It's good for you. All right, let's talk about the stock market. Can we? This number, if you look at where we were way back when COVID took place, we took a big hit and then we ran back up. And then really when stimulus didn't come back in, it kind of started softening again. There are cycles in the stock market, but that's really about the time when stimulus was expected. It didn't happen. And so we kind of drifted down. And now the conversation's back on again about stimulus. And we're starting to see the stock market pick back up because they do see that as a necessary event for us to continue the momentum that, as I've been talking about, has already been built. Top JP Morgan advisors saying that this gridlock was the reason for the decline in the stock market in the last 60 days. But again, optimism is back again that maybe we can get a stimulus before or right after the election, and then we'll be on our way likely to a fuller recovery, which is what we really want, a total recovery ultimately. So all of our neighbors in America can be back working again. That's what we really like to see. Housing finance, unbelievable. We are the V. That's what happened. We are the V. If there was one group in America other than Zoom and Peloton, and I guess Domino's, housing has been a V. And it's been an amazing blessing for you and I. And I remind you every time on News You Can Use, you should take part of your blessing and make sure you love your neighbors by giving back to your neighbors who are less blessed than you and me. I promise you I will meet you there in doing that. All right, existing home sales. Wow. 14-year high. Wow. That's all you can say, right? And then prices set another record. Why is that? Because we had an inventory problem, not enough homes and too many buyers. That's the right problem to have, by the way. But we had that to start the year. And then when COVID happened, we got even less inventory, fewer sellers wanting people to come into their homes. But demand actually went the other direction. Demand increased. And so we've got an inventory problem. And when there's too much demand and not enough supply, a law of gravity in the economic world takes place. Prices can go higher, which they've been. Now, recently, there is an article this past week, red hot home prices have more consumers saying now is a bad time to buy. That doesn't mean that they are not going to buy. They're just saying that if they are asked the question, Fannie Mae asked it monthly in a survey, is this a good time to buy? Fewer this month said yes because they're out looking and it's hard to get a house under contract. You all know that. And then you have to pay more for it. So they're saying, no, it's not a good time to buy. It's a good time to sell. That's what the survey said. It is a good time to sell. It's also theoretically, according to my good friend Doug Duncan, the chief economist with Fannie Mae, a good time to buy as long as your budget allows you to be able to afford it, right? So it's always a good time to buy as long as your budget can afford it. So anyway, the market has not tempered an awful lot as it typically does in October from a seasonal standpoint. We'll keep close watch on that. It was only expected to be down about 5% this year in the fourth quarter, which is better than normal. We normally see about a 10 or 15% decline from the summer months. We've not seen that kind of decline yet. And that's one of the reasons is because mortgage rates hit another low. They've been hitting lows all summer, and that's in keeping with Duncan's forecast as he expects rates to continue even from here to be lower into 2021. Wow, that's amazing. And that means that we'll probably see housing continue to have a good propeller in its space, and that would be low cost. Even though we do have an impediment with inventory, we still have an overall condition in housing that's very good. Amen. All right. Lower rates have created great housing conditions, but they've also created a record number of refinances. A record number of refinances are currently being done in our industry. In fact, our industry is dominated today. The majority of loans that are being done throughout the country that are mortgages are not in the purchase business, but are in the refinance business. 56%. The last report of all the loans being done in America today are refinances, not purchases. Okay, so that's what the nation does. You know what we do? Start with Supreme. That's what you should do. Start with Supreme. Why? Because we focus on your needs. Because we want to be great as a service organization, we know we got to focus on your needs because you need right now to get transactions under contract and closed quickly, right? Because sellers want you to because they're running the show because it's a seller's market. 81% of our business is purchases. We are then, by data-wise, we are an expert and we're also your best partner. Start with Supreme because we're focused on your and your consumers' needs specifically. All right, nationally, because of the low rates and the record number of refinances and purchases doing really well, as I've already reported, we're seeing the average time to get a loan done extend itself. It's now 45 days on a purchase, 50 days on a refi, an average of 49 days. So listen, if you put a contract out today with a seller and you say it's going to take 45 days because you're doing business with a stagecoach, you like that? I do. Or others, you know that's not likely to be a favorable attribute of a contract that will win a bid. And if you're in a bidding event with other contracts, you need to be able to go fast so the seller can move on and buy a other home. Amen, right? So look, the industry's 49 days making wine. Like I told you, I like drinking it, but I don't want to make it during the day. I want to make mortgages and I want to make them go really fast when they need to, because you need to be able to write contracts to give yourself the best chance and your buyers the best chance to be able to make a case to the seller that it ought to be your contract and your buyer's contract that wins the bid. So guess what you do? You start with Supreme. Tell us you want to go fast. We'll go fast. That's what we do. There is this traffic jam. Record number of refinances. Purchases doing better than expected, okay? And so you got a record number and you have a limited amount of appraisers. So what we did, start with Supreme. We just we interviewed Scott Murphy, largest appraisal firm in the Southeast, and gave you 2 ideas about how you as the agent, either on the buyer side, listing side, can be better tuned into what you can do so you can and we can run the play in the playbook called Supreme Speed. If you want to go really fast, we need you and your buyer, and we need Supreme, and we need Scott Murphy, everybody to be on the same page so the play can get run and we can go really fast. Scott, there's a video out. It's 3.5 minutes. Listen closely. 2 things to improve speed and to make sure the valuation comes in at the contracted price, the best chance for it to come in. That information's on a 3-minute video. And by the way, when you contract Start with Supreme today, that video will go out automatically to the listing agent and to you, the buying agent, so everybody's fully informed, 3.5 minutes, about how you can go fast with us, right? Everybody in the car going fast together, and then we can get the best valuation possible to make sure that the contract stays in place. All right, what else do we have to Start with Supreme that benefits you and your buyer? Oh, we have Credit Essentials. We have it Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. And we have it Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock. 30 minutes. We open the black box and talk about really what drives credit scores. And once buyers, your buyers or you, are fully informed about what really drives it, then you can get with our credit whisperer, Lisa Myers, and we can give you a personal roadmap so that you can move from 605 on a credit score, if that's the average of the 679 customers we've served in the last 4 months that Credit Essentials has been up and running, to 665. The difference is 605, you can't get a loan in America. Now you can. Oh, and by the way, your rate just went down probably 50 basis points because your credit score went up 60 points. Start with Supreme and get your customers, when they get pre-approved with us, tell them to go to Credit Essentials. It's good for them because if they have a 665 score, they might be able to get up to 7.25. They're still going to save a lot of money, and it won't take them a lot of time to do it. All right, Supreme Speed Service. We're about to start sending some videos out to you, 3.5 minutes, your customers, so that if you do want to go fast, we tell everyone what their role is to help us go fast. We have a role, but so does the buyer. Get us the documents we need about your income quickly because we all want to go fast. And you also have a role not only with the appraiser, but otherwise to play, to be fully informed of what the buyer needs to do so you can then continue to keep the pressure on so we can get from starting point to finishing point the fastest in America. That's supreme speed service. Now listen, if the buyer didn't take your advice to start with Supreme and they started someplace else, if they didn't take your wisdom to start with Supreme and they started someplace else and they get stuck, okay, in a winemaking event, then what you can do is you can reach out to your loan officer that is a part of your account and you could say, hey, I'm interested in the Supreme Rescue Service because my deal needs rescuing. We're going to need to go fast, but first we're going to need to assess, and we'll do that very quickly because we do everything fast here. We'll very quickly assess the scenario. We have the best mortgage surgeons in America, the best mortgage surgeons. They will evaluate what's going on with the patient, okay? And then they will, in fact, give us a road to recovery for your patient transaction. And then we'll need to go really fast, and we'll give everyone coming up here soon, again, the play in the playbook, what their role is in the process so we can rescue the loan, go really fast, and create another transaction. That's why you should start with Supreme, because we think about all these things and we're focused on all these things because we want to deliver the industry's best customer experience, and we want you in the car with us doing it so we can all create raving fans. Oh, by the way, on the topic of raving fans, our stats, they say it all. We survey at closing, and our closing surveys tell us that we close on time 99.3% of the time. And by the way, customers are satisfied 98.4% of the time. And if you get in traffic today and you look at the faces of people in traffic, you'll see that creating 98.4% satisfied, it ain't easy to do. You know what I'm talking about? Of course you do. Some of our neighbors are just unhappy. We hope and pray that when we intersect with them, not only on their mortgage, but when we intersect in life with them, that we can invest in them in a way that makes them happier. That's what Loving Thy Neighbor is all about. That's where we started today, and that's where we're going to finish. Like I said, that God, when asked the two great commandments, love me, and again, if you're not for that, cool, still for you, still be for me, because I am for that, but if we're not, we can still be for each other. But the second commandment is a fundamental truth, and we all know it, that being for each other, loving our neighbors, doesn't divide us. It brings us together, including all of our differences. And if all of our differences can be consolidated into the idea that we're all in this thing together, we'll do much better as a nation, we'll do much better as a community, much better as a business, and we'll do much better at home with family. And guess what? That leads us to our personal and professional best. And all of us want to go there. Talking about personal professional best, we've got a program coming out I'm so excited about. Love your neighbor, love everybody better. Starting at home, in the workplace, your neighbor, our community, our nation, love everybody better. Well, we all think that's a good idea, but then there's a roadmap on how to do that. Gary Chapman is the author of the 5 Love Languages. He wrote the roadmap about how to specifically love everybody better. And we have him on October 22nd, 3 p.m. for our personal professional best. Not only should you join us, but you should invite your spouse, significant other, your children, your friends, your neighbors. You should invite all those folks that you think need to learn how to love everybody better. And guess who that would be? Everybody, because all of us can learn how to love everybody better. If we do that, we'll love our neighbor better, and we will all then become our personal professional best. This has been News You Can Use, and I look forward to catching you back up on information next Monday that will help you and your buyers and your sellers. That's what News You Can Use is all about, to offer you news that can benefit you and your buyers and sellers so that you too can deliver the industry's best customer experience. Start with Supreme.